You know what's really been bothering me? And I want to do a quick show about the Charlie Kirk situation. Now, to give you a little bit of background here, you know, I had Charlie on as a guest that must have been at least 5 years ago, because I read that he was a huge fan of the Oregon Ducks, and, you know, my Oregon Ducks. That makes you okay with me if you're an Oregon Ducks fan, and a huge Chicago Cubs fan, and he's originally from Chicago and lived in Arizona. So I wanted to know why. How did you get to be an Oregon Ducks fan? And at the time, he wasn't anywhere near as big as he was when he was tragically assassinated last week. But he just said he just loved the style of football, and he's a sports fan. He loved the up and down. It started in the Chip Kelly era, and he just loved the way they played. And he used to show up to the games and wear the emerald green and lemon yellow. And I was surprised to hear that he was an Oregon Ducks fan. And, of course, being from Chicago, a big Chicago Cubs fan. You know, but what he accomplished, you know, I thought of myself a little bit, of course, not anywhere near on the scale of what he did, but when I was a young guy, I decided I wanted to be a sports talk radio host because I drive around town all day, and I was working as a messenger driver. I'd listen to sports talk, and I said to myself, these guys suck. I could go on the air right now with no training and be better than any of them. They're getting scores wrong. They're mispronouncing names. They're getting teams wrong. They're boring. Their takes suck. And got a job as an intern, looked into it, and, you know, from there, I built a 30-year career into it. Then I read about Charlie's background. 16 years old, went into his parents' garage and started a podcast with nothing, just him and a microphone in front of himself. And he had a dream. You know, he's a conservative guy, and he wanted to, and it disturbed him that the youth of this country was overwhelmingly liberal, and every election, they could swing elections, you know, the 18 to 35-year-old crowd. And he made it a goal of his to start Turning Point USA and start chapters all over the country in high schools and colleges, and that's exactly what he did. And he built that microphone in front of his face as a 16-year-old into the monster that it became when he was tragically murdered at the age of 31. So and I'll bet I never thought in my wildest dreams I could build a 30-year career when I decided, well, how do you get into this sports talk show business? But what he did so far surpassed that. And I'll bet he never dreamed that he would have the impact that he did, especially after he was murdered. You know, starting at 16 and then going to 31, and they have, over 300 chapters at colleges all over the country and in high schools and worldwide. And, you know, he created a monster. I'll tell you, the thing I like most about him was his respectful dialogue when he was on college campuses. Like, he'd bring one student after another up to the mic. He never yelled at him. He never cursed him. And a lot of them would be furious and yelling at him and calling names. And he just stayed so calm. He said, anybody who disagree with me, come up to the mic. Oh, you think I'm a fascist and a Nazi? Explain why. Give me examples. And none of them ever could. Well, you hate me? Why? What have I ever said to get you to hate me? What have I ever said that you say I incite violence? And he would usually stump them because, you know, they're stupid college kids. They don't know what they're talking about. But he never talked down to them. He never cursed at them. He never yelled back. He just sat there calmly and rationally and said, hey, if you disagree with me, cut the line, come up in front of everybody, and let's have a talk. We need a lot more of that in this country. Dialogue, conversation, talking to bring down the temperature. And that's exactly what he did. And then we have some sick individual, evidently, if we're to believe what we're being told right now, up on a rooftop in Utah at a university, Utah Valley, shot him in the neck and killed him with one shot. And boy, it's interesting looking at what's going on with this guy. I think, what's his name? Tyler Robinson? Wow, interesting. Now, before we get into that, let's talk about the Trump assassination attempt. Boy, that time flies. That was over a year ago when some young kid, similar to Tyler Robinson, named Thomas Crooks, shot at Donald Trump from a rooftop. And he, luckily he turned his head just at the last second and it hit his ear. I mean, he was a millisecond away from getting his head blown off and being killed himself. But this kid, Thomas Crooks, he was on Discord, and I'd never heard of that before this week. Discord, I guess that's some kind of a social media chat room or social media site. Thomas Crooks and Robinson were both on that Discord site. Both of them evidently had help. Both of them evidently had planned this for a long time. And yet, here's where I was done with Kash Patel, the FBI director, and Dan Bongino, our assistant FBI director. And I used to like Dan's show. I used to listen to him when he was on the radio, when he replaced Rush Limbaugh after Rush passed away. Well, he used to always say, well, this is a conspiracy. There's no way this kid Crooks acted alone. And then once he was named assistant FBI director, in his last month on the air before he was leaving, boy, I'm going to clean that place out. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And this guy didn't act alone. Now, Cash and Dan Bongino go on with Maria Bartiromo on Fox and lied through their teeth. Well, Jeffrey Epstein, he committed suicide. Nobody killed him, which we all know is a lie. Well, we've seen the files. That was their excuse. We've seen the file. Yeah, but the files are a lie. Epstein didn't kill himself. Epstein committed suicide. And then when it came to Thomas Crooks and the Trump assassination, then Bongino pointed his finger into the camera and said, let me tell you something. I've seen the files. This was a lone wolf, a crazed young kid. There's no conspiracy theory. He acted on his own. I've seen the files. Case closed. Let's move on. And you could tell both of them, Cash and Dan, were lying through their teeth. They looked coached. They looked scared. They looked prepared, and they made jackasses out of themselves by lying to the world. I think we all know Thomas Crooks didn't act alone. He had a lot in common with this Tyler Robinson character. So in watching the video here, they have a good video now of Robinson after he shot Charlie. He climbs down off the roof. And I was saying to myself, well, where's the gun? He's climbing down off the roof. I don't see a gun when he climbs down and lands. And that's a tough shot. 200 or 300 yards away. And Charlie was kind of under a canopy, and that's not an easy shot, even for a seasoned military guy. And he didn't have any kind of training to make a shot like that, which, again, is suspicious to me. I don't see a gun when he's climbing down off the roof and when he's landing on a seat and when he's walking away. We're supposed to believe he was alone on this, and he made a professional shot from up there. It seems like a professional hit to me. And I think, obviously, with some of the evidence we have coming in now, he was not working alone. Again, just like Thomas Crooks, he was on Discord. He had contacts all over the place. His boyfriend is a guy named Lance Twigg. And Lance Twigg is transitioning from male to female. And that was his boyfriend, soon to be his girlfriend, I guess, living together in a house. And they were both allegedly on Discord, in chat rooms. And boy, I'm reading all over the place now that this could have been planned. Over the last couple of weeks, people were talking about this on websites and on Discord and saying, wow, this is planned. Maybe we can get him. And then there was I think it was a tweet sent afterwards that said, we got him, with an exclamation point after it. So I don't think Thomas Crooks acted alone. I don't think Tyler Robinson acted alone. And one thing that really concerned me, the neighbors of Robinson and Twigg were saying over the last couple of weeks, there were a lot of cars pulling up to the house, going in and out with out-of-state license plates. They're going in and out of the house and not staying too long. And they said it was very, very suspicious. So I had to say to myself, boy, what was that all about? Why are they going in and out of Robinson and Twigg's house? By the way, why hasn't Twigg been arrested? That'd be one question. And I read a story the other day that said the FBI, and that would be Kash Patel, I guess, and Bongino, are covering up the fact that Twigg was involved because he is, quote unquote, cooperating. Really? Okay. But they seem to have receipts. They seem to have a paper trail. They seem to have all kinds of evidence that maybe this thing was plotted out for the last couple of weeks. They're talking on Discord. They're talking on social media sites. And there are a lot of sick people out there. So let's hope, after being lied to for over a year by, Kash Patel's FBI and with he and Dan Bongino. And by the way, what about Pam Blondie, our Attorney General, or running the Department of Justice? What a disappointment she's been. You talk about a do-nothing. She was a terrible Attorney General of Florida. She's doing an even worse job as the Attorney General. And I hate it when Trump gets up at press conferences and talks about what a great job she's doing. And then he says, reporters ask him, are you going to make arrests? Are you going to have indictment? Well, I stay out of these things. I leave it to Pam. Okay. That's why 10 months in and not one single arrest of a politician or a deep stater yet. Not one. Didn't Tulsi Gabbard hold a press conference about 2 or 3 months ago and said she'd uncovered a mountain of evidence on the deep staters working against Trump? The Barack Obamas of the world, the Biden family, James Comey, James Clapper, John Brennan. I have a mountain of evidence, and I put it on Pam Bondi. So whatever happened to that? Whatever happened to the mountain of evidence with the Epstein file she put on Bondi's desk about a year ago? Nothing happened with that. Not a single arrest in 10 months, Pam. Anyway, This smells to high heaven, this assassination of Charlie Kirk. And I think anybody who thinks this Tyler Robinson kid acted alone and that he could make a shot like that without all kinds of training and wasn't getting help from the outside, and according to allegedly from Discord and other social media sites, he wasn't alone in the plotting of this thing. The Thomas Crooks thing stinks to high heaven. And in my opinion, there's a cover-up from the FBI, from Kash Patel and Dan Bongino and Pam Bondi, the Department of Justice, about the Crooks thing. There was a cover-up of the Epstein suicide, of course. Remember that abortive thing when about a week after people were demanding the Epstein files be released, remember the binder gate? He handed out a whole bunch of binders, and everybody was holding them up outside the White House. Here's the evidence, and the evidence was stuff we already knew 5 years ago. It's just an absolute disaster. But when I see people, when it comes to Charlie, he was a man of faith, a loving husband, a father of 2 young kids, 3 years old and 1 year old. It just breaks your heart to see those little kids. And I thought his wife made a heartfelt, great speech after Charlie was murdered. When she finally came out and made a public statement, I thought it was absolutely fantastic. Boy, that was heart-wrenching watching that a husband and father. And how do you tell your 3-year-old that daddy's never coming home again? And for the people out there, I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, to go on TikTok or to go on Twitter and be jumping up and down and celebrating somebody who was murdered. Yeah, he deserved it. He had it coming. I'm glad he's dead. And hugging and yelling and screaming and jumping up and down. These are sick, sick people. I can't imagine ever doing that. Anybody, unless it was like Adolf Hitler or something, or a world leader of that sort, why you'd be happy about somebody who passed. I remember, I don't know if I've ever agreed with Chuck Schumer on anything. But when his wife was diagnosed with terminal cancer not too long ago, I sent him a tweet and said, Mr. Schumer, sorry to hear the news. All the best. Hopefully your wife recovers and stay strong, my friend. And he sent me a tweet back and said, thank you. I appreciate that. See, that's what we need. People we don't disagree with to talk to each other, like Charlie did at the TPUSA rallies on college campuses. Come up to the microphone. If you disagree with me, you come first. Let's have a discourse. And he never lost his temper, and he never got angry. He said, okay, I hear you. You're calling me a Nazi. You're calling me a fascist. You're calling me a racist. Explain. Give me examples. And he put them on the spot, and most of them couldn't do it. Again, because they're stupid college kids. But the professors and the faculty members who stepped up to the mic couldn't do it either. So again, all I'm hoping for is that we get to the truth of this. I don't think, under any circumstances, this Tyler Robinson character acted alone. And his trans boyfriend, Lance Twigg, should have been arrested. And there should be, I think, mass arrests. There needs to be an investigation of the Discord chats, whether people were plotting this in advance. Now, am I confident that Pam Bondi has the will and the backbone to do this, or Kash Patel? No, I'm not. I'm not confident, because we've been lied to for over a year about Thomas Crooks. But I guess all we can do is hope, and all I can say is rest in peace, Charlie Kirk. I was a fan of yours. Thanks for coming on my show about 5 years ago. Thanks for being a big-time Oregon Ducks fan, and boy, congratulations on what you accomplished, at the age of 16, and then turning it into a worldwide monster force by the age of 31. Admirable. Such a great job he did building Turning Point USA. So rest in peace, I guess. Hopefully he's in a better place now. Hopefully his wife, I know his wife's going to take over TPUSA. Hopefully she can do that and still be a good mom and still raise those kids, or maybe find a replacement for him. But please, everybody, can we not celebrate when somebody dies? Can we not be sick? Can we not be depraved? Can we not... again, dance and jump up and down and celebrate somebody's death? Wow, I just wanted to say that about the murder. And let's not call it, the New York Times had a headline that said, Trump supporter and MAGA person, Charlie Kirk dies at 31. That was their actual dies. It was an assassination. It was a murder. And why do you have to say Trump supporter MAGA in that headline? How about TPUSA founder Charlie Kirk, 31, murdered at event? That was the headline.